Well, this year has been about building momentum for economic freedom. As we move into 2025, we must focus on passing pro-growth policies that reduce taxes and regulations and spending. We got to promote sustainable budgets at the state, federal, and local levels. We've got to expand school choice to empower families and improve education. And we've got to advocate for sound money to combat inflation and restore purchasing power. Hello. Welcome to this week's economy. I'm your host, Dr. Vance Ginn. Thank you for joining me again today. Well, this is the last episode for 2024. Merry Christmas and happy upcoming New Year. As 2024 ends, let's reflect on a year filled with significant progress and challenges. From the election results to a bold policy initiatives and much needed conversation about sound money and inflation, this year has highlighted the ongoing need for fiscal conservatism and economic freedom. Here's an overview of the biggest stories that I've been looking at this year. So on the election results overview, what we saw is with Donald Trump winning the presidency, economic reform and government efficiency took center stage. His proposed Department of Government Efficiency, the DOGE, led by Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, aims to cut wasteful spending and increase transparency. This innovative approach is a promising step in tackling excessive government spending that burdens taxpayers. Look, the next 4 years will be shaped by a focus on tariffs, immigration, and tax cuts. We must ensure that these policies drive prosperity without unintended consequences like inflation or market distortions. We've really got to think about this, I argue, from a classical liberal perspective. Instead of coming at this from a populist perspective where you're just trying to win votes and look at a border wall and other things, I think we need to dig deeper. And with Republicans having majorities in both the Senate and the House and the presidency, this is a great opportunity for them to get something done and provide a more pro-growth policy approach of less spending, lower taxes, less regulation, more free trade, better immigration policies, and so much more in sound money. These are the paths to prosperity that should be tried and true. And these are proven facts, okay? We've got to keep these things going or we're going to get into a bad situation again in 2025. So 2024 has been something about that. Look, the other thing is we've got to look at Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve continues to do what it's doing. It just cut interest rates by 25 basis points to 4.25 to 4.5%. So we've seen a pretty substantial cut in interest rates by the Federal Reserve. But we're still seeing net interest on the debt reaching more than $1 trillion and crowding out not only the federal budget, but really the private sector economy because of higher interest rates and other dollars that have to go into the government slush funds that they're using. This is not a good situation. And at the end of the day, the Federal Reserve's target inflation of 2%, their flexible average inflation rate target, is still well above that. Closer to 3% is what inflation is running. And so this is also an indication that they're not done fighting inflation. I wish they'd stop cutting in their interest rate. Maybe they will in 2025. But they've really got to start cutting their balance sheet. I mean, it should not be $7 trillion. This is way too much. It's a bloated balance sheet overall. We've got to do three things that I think are going to be really important to attacking inflation and getting back to sound money is number one, avoiding past mistakes. Premature rate cuts resemble the missteps of the 1970s, risking another inflationary spiral. I'm really concerned about this. Number two, reducing the Fed's balance sheet, returning the balance sheet to 6% of GDP, which would be around $1.75 trillion instead of the $7 trillion today, would stabilize liquidity and promote long-term growth. Number three, pro-growth policies are essential. The most sustainable path forward is to pair monetary restraint with fiscal discipline. The Trump administration must prioritize policies that reduce government spending and empower the private sector to lead growth. The other big issue that we had here in 2024 was that the state level really had some key policy highlights. Number one, tax competitiveness gains nationwide. What we've seen is there have been bold proposals out there to phase out property taxes. Louisiana just improved its tax system through simplification and flat rates on the income and corporate sides. Kansas made some strides. But look, there's more work that needs to be done to increase tax competitiveness, but also increase economic freedom and prosperity. So I think they're heading in the right direction in a lot of cases, but we've got to have less government spending. That's going to be a big part for any sort of tax reforms. Number two, for the states, school choice expansion. Over 30 states expanded school choice over time, including universal school choice programs in places like Florida and others, and hopefully soon in Texas. These policies empower families, create competition, and improve educational outcomes for students nationwide. I testified on that here in Texas, and I've been looking at this across the country, but we've got to get to a place, right, where you can actually have universal education savings accounts. And I think we should need to move all the school finance systems away from the arcane systems that they have today that are highly burdensome and complicated to just ESAs. That money goes and follows the students, that goes to the parents, they choose where the kids want to go. And then that's where the dollars go, whether it's a public school, private school, homeschool, whatever it's going to be. But instead, we have this complicated system that's creating more bureaucracy, administrative bloat, and less outcomes than what we really need. And so this is a great Christmas wish for me, is that we can have more universal school choice across the country. Number 3 for states is deregulation and economic freedom. States like Arizona and Florida led the way in reducing bureaucratic barriers, streamlining permitting processes, and fostering innovation. These efforts are crucial to unleashing economic growth. According to the Fraser Institute's Economic Freedom of North America in 2024, which is actually using 2022 data, it was New Hampshire, South Dakota, Florida, Tennessee, and Texas. Those are the top 5 states. California and New York are down at the bottom. We know what works and what doesn't work. Let's do more things that work. What about the federal policy highlights? Well, federal policy is the Doge's bold mission, I think, could be a really big thing with Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy to put more pressure on Congress to act first and foremost, but also for the Trump administration to take executive actions that can reduce spending and find ways to deregulate to really unleash the economic growth across the country. A big part of that, though, is going to try to get Donald Trump more interested in spending, because he was not interested in that in the first administration. But maybe some of those like Russ Vought, who's going to be at OMB, and others can really push him in this direction. I really hope that's the case. Number 2, inflation's impact. Rising prices continue to erode purchasing power. Fiscal and monetary reforms are critical to addressing this challenge and ultimately to reduce the Federal Reserve's balance sheet. But we need strong fiscal and monetary rules to harness in the discretion, the lack of sustainability that's coming from a lot of these politicians, and instead finding free market approaches to do this. All right. So my 2024 in review, look, the big wins that I found were sustainable budget advocacy. I've been championing cutting spending and tying any increase in spending to a maximum rate of population growth plus inflation. I've been working on this with many states across the country. I've also worked with Texas Fiscal Responsibility in Texas, Pelican Institute in Louisiana, Americans for Tax Reform at the federal level, and many others. Don't forget that you can go to atr.org/budget project and look at the sustainable budget for every state and look at what those amounts should be for the next budget cycle. I'll be updating these early in the new year, so be on the lookout for that. What we also need to do is make sure we expand the discussion. And I've been trying to do that through a number of means this year in 2024. I've done this through the Let People Prosper show, where I've discussed corporate welfare, energy innovation, education freedoms with many leaders, including John Taylor, Josh T. Smith, James Homan, Matt Mitchell. I mean, so many great people. Judy Shelton, so many great people have been on the show this year. I'm just blessed that they've been on and that they're willing to talk about these key issues. I look forward to pushing the envelope going into 2025. I already have some great guests on board. You don't want to miss this in 2025. I've also have some pro-taxpayer testimonies. My outreach efforts from advocating for property tax elimination to promoting tax reform at the federal level continue to advance policies that allow people to prosper. I'm going to continue to do that. I want to look at and talk with many legislators to say, look, this is the direction we should be going. This is the policy guide to let people prosper overall. And I think that we're going to get even more wins in 2025. In 2024's top reads, here are a few of my favorite books that I've been reading. One is by J.W. Richards, Money, Greed, and God, Why Capitalism is the Solution and Not the Problem. It's an insightful defense of free market capitalism from a moral and practical perspective. Don't miss it. I reread Thomas Sowell's Basic Economics, A Citizen's Guide to the Economy. You know, this is a timeless guide to understanding economic principles without jargon that I think everyone should go out and read. It's a great book overall. I also read Murray Rothbard's The Case Against the Fed, a compelling argument for reforming and ending the Federal Reserve. And another big one that I really took a lot from, and it was great to have her on the Let People Prosper show, is by Ann Bradley. For the least of these, A Biblical Answer to Poverty. A faith-based perspective on addressing poverty with economic freedom is really, I think, a good path to go. You can check out a lot of more of my books. I read about 50 books in 2024 on Goodreads, so go check that out as well. I'll put that in the show notes. So what am I looking forward to in 2025? Well, this year has been about building momentum for economic freedom. As we move into 2025, we must focus on passing pro-growth policies that reduce taxes and regulations and spending. We got to promote sustainable budgets at the state, federal, and local levels. We've got to expand school choice to empower families and improve education. And we've got to advocate for sound money to combat inflation and restore purchasing power. I thank you for joining me on this journey here in 2024 and look forward to you joining me more in 2025 as we discuss ways to let people prosper. Together, I believe we can ensure that America remains a beacon of opportunity for all and find the best ways to let people prosper in whatever they want to do. That's really what this is all about. And I thank you for this opportunity to fulfill my calling, to let people prosper, what I believe God has put on my to-do list, if you will, each and every day. And I may fall through here and there, but I think overall, that's where I'm moving. That's what I'm doing. And this has been a blessed year in 2024, beyond my imagination on the amount of clients that I have, the number of talking to legislators across the country and talking to you. And people and just the normal average day Americans who I learn from each and every day. I'm looking forward to that in 2025 as well. For my 2024 end of year, this is my request to you is please go out and give me a rating. Write me a rating as well. That'd be very helpful for others who are looking for great podcasts. Give me also share with your friends and families. That would be a huge opportunity as well. And, you can find more of my information at vanceginn.com. You can also subscribe and become a paid subscriber to my Substack newsletter, vanceginn.substack.com. We've got a lot to talk about. This was a great year in 2024, but we got a lot more to do in 2025. Don't miss it. And until next time, God bless you. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and let people prosper.